Hi, I'm Alex Glasgow, and today I'm going to be talking to my colleague David Ormsby about mixing agrochemicals for application together. So firstly, Dave, why might you do this?
Look, golf clubs are very busy places, and trying to find time and the right weather conditions is difficult. So if you can mix chemicals, it saves the time required for spraying.
Okay, and I suppose when you think about a lot of golf courses, they're often very busy, and finding time to do one chemical application can be a problem. So that certainly makes sense. What are the possible consequences if things go wrong?
Look, I think the main consequence which people always forget about is if you experience severe cover loss, then as a superintendent, you're going to have to deal with that for 16 to 20 weeks while it recovers. And most importantly, you're going to have to listen to your members and your executive complaining about the consequences of your action.
Okay, so what are the things you need to think about when you're thinking about mixing chemicals?
I think the main things we want to think about, one is, are the chemicals actually compatible? Secondly, are there any physical barriers between the chemicals? And thirdly, are we actually attacking the same target?
Okay, so let's just go through that one at a time. You're talking about the chemical compatibility in terms of not damaging the effectiveness of the chemicals, right?
Absolutely. So some chemicals, when mixed together, will effectively inactivate or reduce the effectiveness of the other chemical.
Okay, and then physical incompatibility, what's that about?
Well, what happens here is that the chemicals, usually due to their formulation, simply won't mix together. So they might separate out, they might form gels, or the likes. But because they physically can't mix together, then obviously they're going to be an issue when we apply them.
Okay, and then you can have problems with actual what you'd call target incompatibility. What's that about?
Right. The issue here is that often we're trying to use one product that's a foliar-based product that might be a herbicide, and then secondly, we're putting on another product in the mixture that's actually root-based. So you actually have an incompatibility here. One of the targets cannot be met with that tank mix.
Okay, right, thanks for that. So, okay, you've decided you want to proceed with mixing some chemicals. What do you need to be aware of at that point?
The main things I think we need to be aware of is, firstly, the number of products that we mix into a chemical result in the mixture becoming hotter. So the more chemicals, the hotter or more likely it is to damage your turf. The second thing is the weather at the time of spraying. Because you're using a mixture, the more extreme the temperatures and particularly the intensity of the sunlight, the more likely damage is to occur. Thirdly, it's the health of your turf. If your turf is under stress, if it's suffering disease, or it's just weak, then once again, the consequences of a brew of chemicals are likely to be more severe.
Okay, so at the point where you're going to mix a couple of chemicals and apply them, what would you do to test or try to confirm that it's actually safe to mix those two chemicals?
The first thing I would actually do is read the label. On many chemical labels, they have some good information what can or cannot be mixed. The second thing, if I had no experience with the mixture, is actually to carry out a jar test. So this involves mixing 2 or 3 ingredients that you're proposing to put into the tank mixture with a little bit of water, and then after a period of, say, 10 minutes, observing if there are any major changes. And so those major changes might be that the bottle warms up or severely cools down. You might see a change in colour. You might start to see layers as the products separate out, or you might start to see the product gelling. In other words, it starts to form a goo or a jelly-like substance.
Right, so if you observe that, clearly they'd be incompatible and you would not be mixing them. And so just to wrap it up, when it comes to mixing of chemicals, if someone asks you, what do you recommend?
My recommendations go down a stepwise process. Firstly, if you've used this mixture on your golf course in the past safely, then you can continue to use it. Secondly, if you've never used this mixture, then I would recommend in the first instance you trial it on a small area first. If you haven't carried out a trial, then my standard recommendation is don't mix the products.
Okay, it's just not worth the risk, right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave.